Matt, you're too young to see. You got all kinds of things buzzing in your head all the
I
time.
know.
That's the
Well,
thing.
I made a joke the other day that like uh I'm becoming like a collection of sound bites now. Like there's no synapses
Depth, no
firing anymore
depth.
to make
Right,
connections between the points, or there's no critical thinking happening anymore. I'm
right, right.
like a Woody doll where I've just got a pull string. You pull the string, and I just out comes the sound bite for the day. Then I'm done. Just one of these days it'll just be in a spot where you just kind of flip me on, turn me off, and put me back to
Well,
bed.
it's a societal thing too, Matt. We're pinged by so many things. We've got so many things we're juggling today. It's tough to go deep into anything. Like what
Yeah,
we're doing right now is nice for me because now I can dive in and be focused on something.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Prove It To Me. I'm your host, Dr. Matt Law. We've got a special guest today, so let's not waste too much time. I do want to give a special shout out to Tom West for making this connection. My guest today has over 45 years of operations, functional, and business leadership expertise in mid-size and large multinational corporations. He has held P&L responsibility for service businesses and led corporate quality, safety, environmental, and engineering functions. He offers a unique approach to helping leaders assess and improve organizational health. He has facilitated the transformation of balanced organizational decision making processes, integrated management systems and metrics, and organizational health assessments for many multinational clients. He regularly develops and facilitates leadership programs and regularly provides coaching to executive leadership teams, middle management, and frontline supervisors. Please welcome my guest, Peter Susca. Hey, Pete, welcome to the podcast. Glad you could be here today.
Well, thanks for having me, Matt.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into the stuff that you're working on. You've got a lot of really interesting stuff that we had in our last conversation. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what you do and really what's big for you right now?
What's big for me? Well, what I do basically is I try to increase the organizational health. And I do that through the lens of safety. I'll say through the door of safety, right? I go in the door of safety because safety is such a wonderful indicator, safety being excessive risk, is a wonderful indicator of other risks and other excesses. So when I go in through that door of safety, I have the opportunity to see quality and ethics and all kinds of other things. And then, as I'll show a little later, this relationship that I have that connects all this stuff back to common reasons and common organizational, shortcomings, if you will. So then I can establish a ROI organizationally rather than just fixed safety and quality stuff, right? So I do a lot of organizational assessments where people allow me to kind of dissect their organization. It's kind of like being a doctor, and having a patient come in and you're looking at the patient's records and you're looking at their family history and you're looking at all the things they eat and all the things they do. And then you're looking at them and then you're looking at the signs and you're looking at their symptoms, right? And it's the same dynamic. And I'm no doctor, um, but it's the same. It's a good analogy, I believe, for kind of what I do because it's holistic organizational medicine, if you will. Um, and so I do these assessments. I do leadership. I call it transformation, basically recalibrating leaders to make better decisions across the organization rather than just vertically. Vertically being, functionally specific or, focused on a particular thing and not looking at the other ramifications. And then I'm working on a book. I've been working on this book for way too long. It's called Beyond Safety: Transforming Organizational Decision Making. So that and a lot of other things is kind of what I do.
That's awesome. I love this. I love the holistic organizational approach. I think it's I think we spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to really fix a lot of the issues that we have with safety, and we talk about the business case, we talk about an organizational culture versus a safety culture, and We talk a lot of big ideas, but I don't see a lot of folks actually having success in having those larger conversations with the organization and diagnosing those problems.
Yeah.
So how did you get started doing this work?
Oh man, yeah, we don't have enough time. It wasn't a straight path. Let's put it that way.
Fair.
So I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. I went to school, got a degree in physics. I had no business getting a degree in physics. I came out with a physics degree, and I think even my physics professor, who loved me, he said, "Pete, whatever you do when you get into the working world, don't go into physics, you know." Uh, but he knew I had an analytical mind, and at the same time, I was in the volunteer fire department. And he said, "Boy, this fire service stuff that you do and this analytical mind, safety would probably be a good," because his son was in safety. And it wasn't that triggered me into safety. It was kind of the fire service, actually. And getting involved, and I did a lot of hazmat work, and I did a lot of hazmat team training, and I traveled all around, and I got into industry and doing industrial stuff. And finally one day I was in some industry, and they said, "Boy, we're looking for a safety engineer," back in that when that term was still valid. Safety engineer, would you be interested in working for us? And I said, "Well, geez, I've never worked on the other side of the fence. I've always kind of come and visited from the outside." And I said, "Yeah." So I took this job working for United Technologies Corporation, a division of UTC, which was called Hamilton Standard in Windsor Locks, Connecticut. They made a real diverse spectrum of things. They made everything. They made propellers for aircraft. They made jet fuel controls, and environmental systems, and they made the spacesuit, and they made the space toilet on the other side. I mean, so it was a really interesting combination of things. And I got involved in doing industrial safety and then just kind of moved up. Ended up being at the corporate office and responsible for the management system and the management system audit program, which was huge. We had 250,000 employees. We had all kinds of operations all over the world: Otis elevator carrier, air conditioning, field ops, all kinds of stuff. So I ran the development of the auditors. I ran the oversight of the auditors, all that. And then I took a job as director of EH&S for Otis in Europe. And that's where I started to really see fatalities. I've been in the fatality world since the early 90s, before it was popular. I hate to say that, but before the term SIF, anybody came up with these names, it was called fatality prevention when I was doing
Hmm.
it. And what I began to see over and over again was that the stuff that I was seeing had connections with other things. And then I began to see that these connections were kind of common. And I had a friend of mine that I worked with, Brad Russell, who had crafted out some of the diagram I'm going to show you. And then I fleshed it out based on just doing it over and over again, proving it out over and over again, and refining it, for almost 40 years of me just proving this thing out like it was some kind of scientific experiment. So that's where my science background came in. And so that's kind of where this all came from. And then, I ran consulting companies, so I had P&L responsibility for a while. I ran quality functions. I ran, other functions, and then I decided to go out on my own about 12 years ago and just focus on the stuff I really love to do and people want me to do. And it's just a win-win at this point. So
Yeah,
that's
that's great. I love the idea of it being a scientific experiment. I mean, this is a scientific podcast, so we're you're in good company
how did
here.
I
So,
know?
so over the years, as you've been doing this work and you've been doing it for a long time, what are a few of the biggest takeaways that you've had from working with different organizations to improve operational excellence and safety?
Yeah. Well, this relationship that I'm going to show in a minute, that basically there's a common cause and effect thread set and connection between what goes on in the board of directors and what goes on in senior leadership, the C-suite, and what goes down in the field, and not that it's related, but how it's related, how it's connected, right? I can draw lines from this decision to that decision and this effect and that effect, right? That's important, to be able to legitimize these things. And then my other principle, which is nothing is an anomaly.
Mm,
And where that comes from is the fact that I can always connect everything at the output side to common reasons on the input side. Everything.
Hmm.
And you gotta have an understanding of how to look at things differently to be able to do that,
Yeah.
right? Um, and the factors on the left of this diagram, and why not, I might as well just show the diagram.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's bring it up.
Hold on, let's bring it up. These factors on the left of this, the organizational factors, the systems factors. And what I mean by systems factors, if you look at a management system holistically, right, that a management system is a plan, do, check, act, or DMAIC, continuous improvement strategic engine. Okay. Its job is to predict and prevent on the input side and to control on the output side. Okay. And you want your input side to be heavy duty because you don't want to have to chase problems with a management system. Okay. Management systems that are chasing problems all day long get overwhelmed by the fact that we're not making good decisions every day. And the management system, even the management system has to chase after them. That's not a good thing. Okay. Because management systems can become overwhelmed by the fact that the business isn't making good decisions. So, what I'm going to tell you is these organizational factors and operational factors in management system deficiencies are pretty common to most every single thing that happens on the output side.
Hmm.
So there's commonality of cause. So there's lesser reasons on the left and grander reasons on the right. I mean, at the output side, there's infinite, kinds of things that you could say are causes. Whereas on the left-hand side of the diagram, the input side, it's a lot more controlled, a lot more consistent. The other aspect that I see often is organizations don't measure how, they measure what. They don't
Mm.
measure how something was achieved, how something was done, how decisions were made. They measure the results of them.
Yep.
And the real value in prediction is in the how. The real understanding of where risk comes from is in the how.
Mm-hmm.
So most organizations are not in tune to continually measuring risk or excesses in their decision making. They're measuring the results of them. And what I always say is you can have a, a lousy process and good outcomes for long periods of time. So what that means is you need to be measuring process health, not output health. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and then this is a basic thing, but I see this often that even safety professionals don't talk about hazard and risk and tolerability the same way. And we got to get our profession together. I mean, we got to be like, I hate to say it, like accountants, okay, who measure, you know, to pretty much the same way. Because when I put up a picture and I say, hey, what's the most significant, highest severity hazard here? I'll get that framed in a variety of different ways out of the mouths of safety professionals looking at the same thing. Okay.
Wow.
And tolerability is an interesting thing. And tolerability is where safe comes from, or what I call organizationally safe enough. So if you go back to your policy statement, your value statement, you should be able to extract tolerability out of that, which is how much risk are you able to assume, allow to give you what you want consistently or not give you what you don't want. That has to be put into some process by which the folks out in the field can say this needs to be fixed or this doesn't need to be fixed. And if it needs to be fixed, can it wait or does it have to be stopped today? So in the field, we want three thresholds. Safe, it's tolerable as is. Unsafe, it's not tolerable, but it doesn't have to stop. It needs to go on a list. It needs to be fixed. Or it's an imminent danger situation. Stop the presses. We can't continue to expose people to this or continue with this hazard. And
Hmm.
that's what I try to build in the field is that capacity to be consistent around, I make it three colors, green, yellow, and red. Okay. We
Easy.
all need to be able to talk the same color about the same thing. If they can do that in the field, you're good. You're good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You don't need this, numeric system out there as the at the front line. Yeah, maybe you come in later and get it dialed in a little differently, but in the front line decision making, can I continue to operate or not? That's the line. That's the line.
Mm.
And I think the other one is that organizations do not measure risk well, and they don't look at risk the right way. And they're looking at risk from history of harm or history of problems, not probability of events or problems. And that is also based on the metrics and the data that they get. I mean, we're trying to do risk assessments and gather risk data, but those people aren't speaking risk. They're speaking harm and history of harm. It's just two different languages. So we have to
Uh,
get on the same page. So th those are the biggies.
yeah. It's funny. We spend a lot of the time on this podcast going through different studies and seeing how different factors affect outcomes, and that's really, I mean, that's the thing here, though, and you said it perfectly. Folks are measuring the outcomes, but not measuring all the things that create those outcomes, right? I mean, in science, we're talking about independent variables and dependent variables. If
Right.
we're only measuring dependent variables, we don't really have a clear understanding of the relationship there. We don't have an understanding of what's causing something to happen. So we have to look at both, right? Both ends of the spectrum. But I mean, I love this approach, and you've done a lot here. Over the years, I know you've observed this a lot. How has that created some kind of validation for this approach that you're taking?
Well, I mean, I prove it out every single day because I run the cause and effect diagram on everything that I do. So it's proven out by the fact that whether I'm looking at quality, or I'm looking at cost, or I'm looking at EBITDA, or I'm looking at safety, it follows the same path. Just a good example. I'm in a company right now and doing some field reviews with some folks, and this is a service company. They're out in the field doing maintenance of products and service of products. And one of the questions I ask is, what kind of contract are you working off of? Which, you wouldn't think is a safety question, but it has significant relevance in safety because that is what's driving the behavior of the salespeople, the general manager, and the worker in the field is working to the contract. And then, if the customer relationship is between the worker and the customer, and the contract doesn't draw the lines correctly around what that person should be doing or shouldn't be doing, then the customer starts asking for more than the contract allows. And because they want to keep their customer relationship, these workers stretch themselves into areas that they're not qualified to do. And that you can see where the risk comes in,
Mm,
right? But you can see where that comes from, sales and contracts and their understanding of the ramifications of these contracts, whether they be time and materials or fixed fee, and the ramifications of downstream decision making. They're not looking at that.
mm. Interesting. A lot of people talk and theorize about this this type of approach, right? Going about through all the different processes and things that happen within an organization. Starting with the business from the top down and letting that inform safety or letting safety performance follow that. I can tell you, I know the amount of people that I know that are actually doing that type of work, I can count on one hand. So, what's different about the way that you do it that actually makes this actionable?
One, I can help people see the actual connection between things, the correlation between things.
Hmm.
It's not a leap of logic. I'm walking them down the path step by step up my diagram, back my diagram, so they can see where these things are coming from. And I try to make things as visual and as appropriate as possible. Again, going back to that physician's analogy, right? If I'm sitting in front of one of my peers talking to a doctor, if I'm sitting with a young patient, I'm sitting with their parents, I have to be able to relate to each of those folks differently with the same information.
Yeah.
So that's a really important part of my job is to be able to relate to the person in front of me and get them to see what they need to see and do it in a way that's practical, reasonable, and they get it and the light turns on. So if I can turn the light on in the whole spectrum of the organization, I'm going to be successful because they'll be able to talk to each other now with the same, calibration, if you will.
Yeah. That's a
Um,
that's a good takeaway right there for anybody who's listening to the podcast, but especially the researchers that listen to this podcast. Just I mean, once you learn that thing, no matter how technical or scientific it is, you have to be able to relate it back to the person you're delivering it to. That's when we don't do that, that's what creates this gap between research and practice, and we're not getting the right information to the right people to actually make things happen.
well, I'll tell you something personal. I had this kidney issue, and it was found by me, looking for. I went to get some life insurance, and they did this full, you know, uh, blood test and everything.
Hmm.
And my doctor says, "Well, you got this kidney issue, and it's systemic." And I said, "Oh, what is it, doctor?" And he said, "Well, it's this kind of thing, but let me tell you what it's like. It's like a hole in the coffee filter." And he said, your grounds, okay, are getting into your coffee and your grounds. And so he explained it in a way that was like, okay, I get it. You know what I mean? He didn't have to
Yeah,
talk, hemoglobin and science and all kinds of stuff. I said, okay, I get it. How are we going to stop the grounds from getting in the coffees? This is what we're going to do. And he did it,
yeah,
and I bought into it because I could see it,
that's a great
right?
example.
And so if you're a technical expert, you have to realize that you can be talking technically accurate and no one is going to understand you.
Hmm.
And the point of talking to someone is to get understanding and have a relationship in terms of understanding knowledge and seeing the same thing in our heads and moving together in the same direction,
Yeah,
right? So I have spent a lot of my life trying to simplify everything to the point of the fact that anybody who's in front of me, I've got examples, I've got analogies, I've got anything I can use to help them see the light
yeah.
because I don't want them going away saying, "What the heck was that guy talking about?" I mean, he looks like he knows what he's talking about, but I have no idea what he was talking about.
Oh,
Back to your question, organizationally, there's a top-down and a bottom-up look when I do an assessment. Top down, and I can do top down, whereas I don't think everybody can do top down. And top down is basically me sitting with the leadership team, asking questions about how they run their business, how they've acquired, what they do, what their metrics are, how they meet their metrics, how they make decisions. And from that, I can see risk in the field in my head. I know what that yields way downstream. And I can say to these people, I bet you got problems with this. I bet you got problems with that. And some of them will say no. And I know they do because they're just not measuring it yet. Right.
yeah.
But the safety stuff, I know what that creates. And
Hmm.
then when I go out in the field, I will see that excess. I will see that risk and I can walk them back and connect the two.
Mm.
And I think that helps a lot.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. I got a job. A friend of mine said, "Hey, you're a safety guy. I'm an operations guy in this timber frame construction company. I don't know if you've ever seen a timber frame structure, but it's basically solid wood beams that go together with dowels. Okay, there's
Okay.
no
Yep.
screws or anything. They just nail the dowels in. It's beautiful. And the company makes all of these custom structures and basically makes it like a Lego diagram. Every single piece is numbered. It tells the guys in the field where to put it. They're all CNC'd out so that they fit together. No cutting in the field, nothing. Okay. So I go to this job site. I'm looking around and I looked at the job sites and I come back and I ask them questions. And I said, well, I see your guys working at height. I see them using scissors lifts and boom lifts, and they're doing a good job of that. But I see ladders in the trucks, and I've never seen anybody use ladders. Why do we have ladders? And he said to me, the ladders are for sanding. And I said, sanding? Now, this is my process improvement head spinning. Why
Yep.
would you sand in the field when you're making it in a CNC shop and sanding it before it goes out to the field? So you're making a perfect beam leaving your facility and it becomes imperfect in the field so that you have to make it perfect again. That's never good. Okay, rework.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we call real work, right? So, okay, why are we sanding? Well, we get it dirty. We hit it with the hammer because we kind of knock it in because it doesn't fit, all of that stuff. And I'm like, are you okay with sanding? He goes, no, no one likes sanding. To a person, no one in our company likes sanding. I said, how long does sanding take? He said, for a crew of 4 people, it could be a day to 4 days. 4 days of
Wow.
guys up on a ladder sanding with a sander. I said, oh, yeah, 3 points of contact, right? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, yeah, give me a break. Okay. Give me a break. Okay. So now you've got people working at height and they're not well protected from that fall. Why do you have people on height? There's no good reason. There's no good operational reason for it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's change the process, engineer out the need for sanding in the field,
Mm-hmm.
which then gives you more time, right? Because I'm not making more profit on the job because I'm not having all of that labor hours built into the job. And in that time frame that I was sanding, I can do a whole other job. So not only can I get you more profit on this job, I can get you more revenue, profitable revenue on other jobs. See where I'm going?
Mm-hmm.
I can get people off of ladders for the most part. Okay. I can make them happier because they hate they hate sanding. It's a win, 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 win. And I didn't fix safety. Safety came along for the ride. In fact, that I fixed the process.
Wow.
And the process was good for business all around. You undeniably good.
Wow.
So all we did was took better care of the wood in the field. And we created the discipline, a quality discipline to do that. That's all it took.
Wow. Imagine that. I there's this permeating thing throughout our profession that we've been battling for years, and it's this idea that safety is the opposite of productivity. And I mean that is one perfect example that disproves that entirely. Now, I will argue that safety professionals have the capacity to make safety the opposite of productivity, but
Yes,
when you're approaching it from the right angle and you are approaching it from the business angle and taking all of the other factors into account, you can create something that is both safe and productive and efficient and works well
exactly.
for the business.
And the paradigm shift is you should always approach it
Yes.
from the business angle.
Right.
Always. Okay. You're a business person. I don't care if you call yourself a safety person or not. You're in a business. You're a
Hmm.
business person. You're not just hanging out here on Gilligan's Island, you know what I mean, on Safety Island. You're a business person. You have to fit into that business. Okay. Um, what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought. But the way that I go about this is I can see business health. I
Hmm.
can see flavors of business health really well. And the safety profession needs to learn that. I'm not talking about just going to school and getting an MBA. I'm talking about learning what creates value in your organization and what detracts from value in your organization. Learn those.
Yeah.
Okay. What creates value? What detracts from value? I put up this slide in a lot of my presentations, and it's the floor of the driver's side of a car, and there's the gas pedal and the brake pedal. And I said, the analogy that I use is a car going forward is like a business being productive.
Mm.
Everybody goes, okay. I said, so what pedal do you push to get the business to be productive? The gas pedal. I said, all right, is safety the gas pedal or the brake pedal? Everyone says brake.
Mm. Hmm.
Everyone in the room says brake. Now, brake for good reason, but why have to brake at all?
Yeah.
We should not be living on the value of safety, that it's worth the cost. I understand that, but you don't need to spend the money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have to undo that,
Yeah.
because we went from, having no respect, to having some respect, to having no money, to getting the money and the respect, and now having lots of money, and then people throwing money at us.
Uh, on that note, there's been quite the evolution in the safety profession over the years, and we've got a ton of these big ideas like BBS and HOP and SIF and energy-based safety and whatever the next thing is. But folks get hung up on that. They're missing the real actionable tools to make any of those concepts happen. So, from your perspective and your observations and everything that you've been able to do, what would your advice be to those safety professionals who struggle with those?
And, I have to say, and I see executives do this, they're looking for the elixir.
Mm,
What's everybody else drinking that's successful? Go find the elixir. And somebody said, oh, it's hop or it's BB. It was BBS, and then it was this, and then it was that, right? And
yeah.
we just chase the elixir. Okay. And as you can hear by what I'm talking about, I'm an integrator. I'm holistic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Uh, there's no one thing that is going to fix anything here. There are systemic reasons for everything. So whatever we do has to relate to the systemic challenges in the business and fix those.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would say to a safety professional is take a step back. Take a step back. I mean, a lot of times we're like this, right? We're up like, we're going to fix this guy, and we got to fix this, and we're tactically in there. And a lot of times we're doing the job of the operations people because we care. We're in there. We'll just fix it myself. Step back. Okay, you're seeing a whole bunch of issues. Where are they coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Where are they coming from? Then start to talk to your peers, the quality people. Where do your issues come? What are your issues? Where do they come from? Son of a gun. They come from the same places.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I talk to a quality person today, any company, I'll say, okay, what are the typical root causes of your nonconformities? They'll say, people not following procedures. That's what they'll say. If
Yeah.
I talk to a safety person, what are they going to say? Or a safety or an operations person, they'll say, people not following procedures. Because we did it all. We wrote it all out. We got them trained. They're just not doing it. Okay, that's what they'll say.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now if we realize that we're at the same place with our failure modes in both functions, and really it's all functions, okay,
Mm-hmm.
in both functions, then the issue has to be higher up than that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Wait a minute. It's got to be up here, not down here. We can chase this forever. We can chase this forever. Okay. So get to the point where you can interrelate your opportunities, interrelate your conversations. And I do this by process talk, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about processes the same way. You can't talk about risk the same way. You can't talk about outcomes the same way, but we can talk about process health the same way. So that's
Mm.
should be the common language operationally in a business, process health. Okay. Build relationships with your peers, with the workers, understand their realities, understand their realities, and work with them to try to find a common win-win opportunity, like I did with the structural,
Yeah.
timber frame. Those are win-win. You're trying to create win-wins. Win for the worker, win for the business, win for safety. Win, win, win. Okay? They're out there. You just got to be look for them. You got to look enough open enough, be open enough to see that stuff. And then create some small successes and then advertise those and sustain them and then build on them.
Yeah.
That's the way that you do this internally.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic. I think that's great advice that I feel like nobody gets from uh, you know, sitting in a conference session with, just the next big sexy idea. That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah, I guess I guess the opportunity I provide is I'm more than an idea person. I'm I can help you fix it. I
Yeah.
can understand your situation. And these are not cookie cutter fixes, Matt. You
Hmm.
got to understand the, I'm just like I'm looking at a patient, right? I can't throw the same drug at everybody. Well, that's what doctors do today. But I can't throw the same drug or the same fix at everybody. I got to look at them, their age, their background, their other issues, and I got to customize something to that. So that's where I spend most of my time is really trying to make it make sense in the culture of that organization.
Yeah.
The other piece that I recommend, and I'm not advertising myself here, but I recommend to safety professionals is get your leadership aligned. Get them some training that aligns them to where safety fits into business decision making, like I am talking about it.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Not to have to do safety, not let's rah safety. No, wait a minute. What is safety telling us about the health of our business? And how should we listen to the safety symptoms and signs that we see, and how to go back and figure out what we should be fixing as a management team?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Because if you don't do that, then you're constantly chasing the result of the fact that they just don't get it.
Hmm. Yeah. No, absolutely. So this question is slightly off topic, but I wanted to ask because we've got a lot happening right now with new technologies in the field, emerging technologies for safe work or for whatever it might be. Has any of the evolution in technology informed what you do?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of I learned from BBS. Hop to me is a compilation of a lot of things that I already was doing because it comes out of continuous improvement. It comes out of a
Sure.
lot of things that it was part of my world. Okay. Um, but I think the stuff that interests me, Tom West, that's how we met.
Oh yeah.
They have a wearable technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this device is collecting real-time risk data. That's interesting to me because when you think about how most organizations collect real-time risk data, it's their workers.
Mm.
So you got these, you got, let's say 200 workers walking around your shop, and you're looking at them as sensors, okay?
Mm-hmm.
As sensors. And and if you know anything about sensors, you have to have the right sensor. It has to be calibrated and continually calibrated, right? It has to be sensing all the time
Mm-hmm.
what you're looking for, right? Not contaminated by other things, right? So you can see how a human being as a sensor is somewhat problematic, okay?
Yeah.
Even though
Yeah.
they may know what they're looking at, they're not looking at it. They're doing other things, okay? They're
Right.
focused on other things. So they're not full-time sensors. And they're not, like I said, about hazard and risk and tolerability, and they're not all calibrated to alarm at the same level,
That's true.
right? And we want a sensor to tell us, whoa, 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 something's going on, right?
Right.
So that device interests me because, and Tom and I are doing a talk at the VPPA conference in Nashville. Um, and we're going to talk about the kind of the fact that we need both. We need the humans out there because the humans can translate and interpret things a little differently than the technology can, but both together is powerful as heck. Because I have this metric I call delta R, change in risk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's what we should be measuring. And it's usually up, not down. Okay. So you've done your risk assessment, let's say, and you put your risk level here. You walk away from that risk assessment, that risk is changing. Risk is dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I want to know how dynamic. I may be okay with it being in here in this time in this area, but I'm not okay with it up here. So how do I know when it's up here? How long it's up here? Where it's up here? Where somebody's doing that? I have to wait for somebody to tell me, or I have to wait for an event.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to wait for that. I
Yeah.
don't want anybody waiting for that. And I think the wearables are a step in that direction of being able to get real time. Whoa, whoa, whoa! What's going on out here? Okay, we got a delta R that's above our threshold. Let's go look at it. Let's go talk to somebody. Let's go find out.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. It's pretty cool to see the kind of data that we're bringing in now, and of course, all the analysis that we can do on the back end. It's a great way to, going back to the figuring out what factors go into the outcomes. And actually being able to measure those things that maybe we haven't been able to see before. So, yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. So what I'm hearing is that listeners who are going to the VPPPA conference need to come and see you and Tom talk, right?
Yeah, and I'm doing another session myself that talks about um, the predictive capacity in a management system. And I think the title is your management system healthy enough to predict your next injury?
Ah,
Which is
okay.
me talking about real efficacy in management systems and what it takes and how system elements talk to each other and the wiring of them and all this stuff. It's peak craziness, but I'll do it in a way that people will get it.
Nice. Awesome.
So here's the culture to unwanted outcomes relationship that I've been talking about. And and this came about over many years of me, and this is the simplistic version of it, because I used to give people the detailed version of it, and I could just see the eyes roll back in their head. And I guess I wasn't watching their eyes because one day somebody said to me, I think Pete, you showed me this 3 times. I think I'm finally getting it. And I was like, oh my. You imagine how many people didn't admit that and just walked away nodding their head. So I had to make it simpler. So what this basically is the relationship, cause and effect relationship between what I call organizational and operational factors. I don't really like the word culture because it's just too generic. Organizational and operational factors. What an organizational factor is if you're in a, let's say you're in a company it's got a corporate office, it's got divisions, it's got sites, then your corporate entity has a certain way of doing things. It has certain metrics, it has a certain style, it has a certain leadership approach. Um, it has certain logos. Things you're going to find everywhere you go in that company that come down from the organization. Those are organizational factors. Okay, how organization prioritizes things, all of these things, right? And then the operational factors start probably at the business unit level, where now you've got a different business and you've got a different history of business. Maybe you got acquisitions, you got this purpose focused operation, and they have their own factors. They got the translation of the factors from the organization, and then they got their own, which are the history of the plants, the history of the operations, the market, the people, the all of that stuff, right? Those are those factors. So those two sets of factors are what create the decisions in the organization, what the decisions are created through, if you will.
Mm.
Okay.
Hmm.
And and if those factors are not, and I look at factors as being neutral until they're not. Okay. I look at factors as all being neutral until they start to have negative implications on decision making. Okay. That imbalance. Okay. And if we're so focused on one thing and we're not focused on the other things that we say that we care about, this imbalance moves downstream. Okay. The only chance that we have to not have it go downstream imbalance with excesses and risk is the management system seeing it at the decision phase, seeing it in the decision. And what I'll talk about, I call about first thoughts. First thoughts is like, hey, I think we should grow the business. Hey, I think we should make more profit or bigger EBITDA. I think we should do this. And then the next thing is the how. Right there in the how is where the management system should be interfacing into the decision making because the
Mm.
how is where that imbalance starts. Okay. And if your management system isn't inward looking into the decision making from the board all the way down to the floor, because these factors go this way, okay, then it will not be able to predict. And the only result it will have is be able to maybe react to it. It will see it in risk. It'll see it as the risk is already created. Okay. So now this decision gets moved into a process. Hey, we decided to move this a piece of machinery from one plant to another. Okay. Process change. Okay. Now, process change could be operational, it could be service, it could be functional, it could be procurement, it could be hiring people, it could be all of those processes. So I look at processes generically as a way of doing something. And if that way of doing something is not balanced, then in that process lives benefit and risk. And if we didn't balance the two, The risk is living there at a level above what's acceptable.
Mm,
Okay. This could be quality, it could be ethics, it could be anything. Okay. And usually risks live together, so it's usually more than one. The way that I see this excessive risk is through safety, because safety is just an easy indicator of poor decision making or imbalanced decision making. So I can walk through your plant and I can see excessive safety risk. Where I see excessive safety risk, I look into the process health. Where I look into the process health, I usually find unhealthy processes. And there is my start of trying to fix the operational, value, improve the operational value. It's in profit process change, not in band-aiding safety. As I tell people all the time, putting good safety on a bad process is like putting really good paint on a rusty surface. It just falls off.
mm,
It looks good for a while, and then it just falls off.
yeah.
Okay. So, so if this risk lives long enough, it ultimately creates near misses, close calls, incidents, whatever. Okay. That's how this happens. And those outcomes could be quality outcomes, safety outcomes, ethical outcomes, cost outcomes. Everything runs the same path. So if everything runs the same path, then everything comes from the same place. And it does.
Mm,
So, so if you tip this arrow backwards and now you have a problem, that problem might be you see risk or you have a nonconformity or you have a finding, go backwards. Don't wait for blood to go backwards to figure it out. And I think a lot of companies I see people only doing robust causal analysis when there's blood.
mm, yep. Yep.
And the reasons are all the same, folks. Don't wait for blood.
Yeah.
Don't wait for blood. Okay. So again, and this is where I'm able on the left to start fashioning the conversations across functions and building the conversation about fixing the right stuff, fixing
Yeah.
the real reasons. So that's that.
How can listeners connect with you and learn more about you and your work?
Well, my website isn't so good. I haven't been able to patch that up. So
Yeah.
uh, the best of me is probably on LinkedIn. So if you go to LinkedIn and find me, Peter Susca on LinkedIn, that's probably the easiest way. You can email me at Oscar Papa X-ray OPX Safety SAFETY at cox.net. So OPEX Safety at cox.net, or you can call me 860-713-8050. I love to talk to people. I spend a lot of time, as you could probably tell, I spend a lot of time talking to safety professionals, helping, they're on the edge of the roof, getting ready to jump. And I talk them down and I give them a path, and I enjoy doing that. A lot of what I do here, Matt, is not for me. It's one for the organizations and two for the safety profession. If you see me at a conference talking, it's not for me to really advertise what I do. It's for me to convert people. It's for me to educate people because I'm not going to live forever. This needs to live forever. This needs to carry on.
Awesome. Again, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Any other parting thoughts for the listeners?
Well, I mean, there is a lot of depth to the 5,000 foot review that we just did here. If anybody, if anybody feeds back to you, hey, I'd like to learn more about process health, or I'd like to learn more about management system efficacy, or I'd like to learn about more about this, we can dive in.
Well, no, I really appreciate you coming on. I'm sure we'll get some listeners that are going to be reaching out to you to dive deeper into this. But yeah, thanks again.
Thank you.
Prove It To Me is produced by me, Matt Law. Original music by Wes London. You can find this podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Like what you've heard so far? Please like, subscribe, and follow wherever you get your podcasts, and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Got questions about what we talked about or research that you want to share? Send an email to contact@proveitpod.com. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and its guests and do not necessarily represent the official position, opinion, or strategies of their employers or companies. Examples of research and data analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based on very limited, often single use case, and sometimes dated information. Assumptions made within this discussion about research and data analyses are not necessarily representative of the position of the host, the guests, or their employers or companies. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast. The presentation of the content by the guests does not necessarily constitute an active endorsement of the content by the host.